Hello, welcome back. Let's see what we got here. Can't do that. Well, first off here, we got the Crimean War. And perhaps the prettiest reason to start a war since the Americans got a bit shirty over our borrowing of their sailors in 1812. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, began as a disagreement over whether Catholic or Orthodox Christians should control the churches in the Holy Land. Of course, it was really about whether Britain or Russia was allowed to have the bigger empire, but we don't talk about that in polite society. Casus Belli was then Napoleon III sent a warship into the Black Sea to politely suggest that the Ottoman Sultan Abdülmecid I, crazy name, crazy guy, acknowledged French Catholicism as the authority over Christian sites in the Holy Land. This rather annoyed Tsar Nicholas I, since up till this point the Eastern Orthodox Church had controlled those sites, and he responded by sending 2 corps to the banks of the Danube. Diplomatic relations soured from there, and since the British and French were weary of Russian expansionism and had troops in the area anyways, they decided they might as well pitch in on the Ottoman side. As you'd expect from the name, most of the conflict was fought in the Crimea, with the Russian Empire on one side and an alliance of Britain, France, the Ottoman Empire, and Sardinia on the other. It was also one of the first truly modern wars, if large masses of men shooting each other over which toff got to call themselves emperor or whatever can be called modern. Technology like the exploding artillery shell, the railroad, and the telegraph shaped the conflict, and the advent of photographic technology meant it was one of the first wars to be documented in the press. This was particularly delightful in that the great legacy of the Crimean War was the rank incompetence and general mismanagement on the part of the leadership of all sides. Something to really be proud of there. If you're going to be inept, be really inept. For the citizens on the home front puffed up with patriotic fervor, this was a bit like going to see your favorite band in concert only to realize that they only sounded good thanks to auto-tune and ruthless editing. The war ended in 1856 when the Allies took the key Russian city of Sevastopol, recognizing the inevitability of defeat. Nicholas I sued for peace, and as part of the terms the Black Sea was declared neutral. Moldavia and Wallachia were made independent, and everyone more or less tried to forget the entire embarrassing debacle. It did lead to extensive calls for military reform and to nationalist movements across Eastern Europe, which doesn't quite seem worth the lives of 500,000 people. But what do I know? Now we have the Battle of Balaclava. On the 24th of October 1854, the Allied forces of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire had settled in for a long winter siege of the Russian port of Sevastopol. The British, under Lord Raglan, took Balaclava and the right flank of the siege. This was a problem because the British didn't actually have the manpower to hold the right flank. See Crimean War, rampant incompetence. Sensing weakness, Russian forces charged the British defenses and managed to capture several redoubts and their artillery pieces. It was a major, though not ultimately significant, victory for the Russians, but the battle is most famous for the pain to incompetent leadership and senseless loss of life that is the charge of the Light Brigade. What is that word, incompetent? Why do you always gotta fucking use it? I'm sure you've read the poem, and if not, for God's sake, go read a book. Cannon to the left of them, cannon to the right of them, etc. There were a lot of cannon. Is the point. The whole thing is fraught with ambiguity and recrimination on all sides. But broadly, here's how it happened. Lord Raglan, the overall commander of the British forces, gave the order to Lord Lucan, who commanded the cavalry forces, to send the Light Brigade to harry the Russian forces, who had seized the artillery position on the south side of the battlefield. Unfortunately, the courier who brought the order to Lord Lucan didn't deliver the information clearly enough, and Lord Lucan ordered the Lord Cardigan, who commanded the Light Brigade and was incidentally Lucan's brother-in-law, and who hated him intensely, to charge a fortified Russian artillery position at the end of the valley. If you're beginning to notice a common theme of Lord this and Earl of such and such massively cocking up operations, you've hit upon the key problem with allowing bored aristocrats to buy officers' commissions. At any rate, despite this order making as much sense as strip naked and dance the Argentine tango within sight of the Russian guns to demoralize the enemy, Lord Cardigan duly led his men into the teeth of the enemy artillery. The net result was that the Light Brigade suffered roughly 40% casualties. The Russians were very confused, and Lord Cardigan, upon seeing that the battle was lost, buggered off back to his private yacht for steaks and champagne. It was that sort of war. Well, let's try this out.
So much for the house call. I'll have to find a way into that carriage.
Fellows are just plain strange.
What's the meaning of this? Who the devil are you?
Prime Minister, I'm your new bodyguard, Jacob Fry.
I wasn't informed of any new bodyguard. Who's your commanding officer?
Let the boy speak, Dizzy.
Madam, apologies. But we've learned of a threat on your life. And the Met thought it best to move quickly.
Threat? What sort of threat?
That sort. If you excuse me a moment.
Where'd they come from?
See here. What's all this?
Not so fast, Your Excellency.
Hey! Get back here with that Prime Minister! Whoa! Yeah!
Oh, you son of a gun. No! No!
Time to say your god! Yeah! 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 Yeah!
Everyone all right?
We seem to have come through unscathed. You have our thanks, Mr. Fry.
It was Gladstone. I bet my life on it. This is perfectly in keeping with this distinct lack of character. Show yourself, Gladstone! Show yourself, you feckless muck snipe!
Well, he's hardly going to be in the van with a cudgel, is he?
Damn Gladstone! That bloody man! He will pay for this!
Thank you. What do you intend to do about Gladstone, young man?
I assure you, Madam, Gladstone is innocent in this.
But he tried to kill my husband.
Well, we'll look into Gladstone. Perhaps you can help me with another inquiry, Madam. A gentleman with ties to Parliament, older, wears cavalry uniforms and has a large mustache.
You seem like a rough and ready sort of fellow, Mr. Fry.
Well, yes I am, actually.
And are you familiar with the poorer districts of our city?
Roughly.
Wonderful. As it happens, I've been eager to tour the Devil's Acre. If you were to escort me, I'd be happy to assist you in your inquiry.
That strikes me as a dangerous idea.
Then it's settled. Come back here to Downing Street tomorrow night, 8 o'clock sharp. Good day, Mr. Fry.
But
Good day, Mr. Fry.
Well, that's the end of this video. I'm gonna check out the databases in the next part. Have a good one, and we'll see you later.